Nintendo.
Genesis does what Nintendo don't. A classic slogan from Sega, first used in their advertising for their newly announced Sega Genesis home console way back in the late 80s, early 90s, as a means of getting the upper hand against Nintendo's NES, who, at the time, dominated the console market in North America. The phrase was also later adopted by fans as Sega does what Nintendo don't, adding further fuel to the fire in the console wars between the two giants, but in the end, as we all know, Nintendo was the one to eventually emerge victorious in that battle. While the Big N focused on one central console experience with the SNES and Nintendo 64, which by the way kind of flopped, Sega focused more on upgrading the Genesis with various add-ons for the existing hardware. These did not sell well, and that was the beginning of the end for Sega, as the Genesis was their last home console considered a financial success. With the Sega Saturn having one of the worst launches in video game history, coupled with the fact that Sega quickly abandoned the console, releasing almost no games, and then discontinued it only 4 years after its initial release, things were looking dim, to say the least.
Hit it! Sega's next-generation gaming platform, revolutionary sports and arcade gameplay, all with amazing new 3D experiences never before possible on home game systems. Wow!
Then, as a last-ditch effort, Sega released the Dreamcast, and with it, the first 3D Sonic game, Sonic Adventure. Sonic Adventure launched alongside the Dreamcast in all regions, and despite being in development for a mere 10 months, was one of the biggest games at the time. But, possibly reflecting the short development time, were littered with bugs and glitches. Essay was critically acclaimed, and some critics even speculated that it would popularize the Dreamcast and re-establish Sega as the dominant console manufacturer. Sadly, as we know, this wasn't the case. And not even 3 years after the release of the Dreamcast, Sega went third party. With an aim to reach new players by creating an enhanced version of one of their older games, they released Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut, a port of Sonic Adventure for Nintendo's GameCube and PC, and this is the game we're taking a look at today. Sonic Adventure DX, or SADX, was released in June of 2003 to mixed response, with one of the main criticisms being that the re-release didn't fix a lot of the flaws from the original. So we're gonna deviate a little bit from the norm here. The closest I got to playing this game when I was younger was looking at the box art in my local game store and thinking it looked kind of weird, and I mean, look at it. This has to be one of the ugliest renders of Sonic so far. Just ew. Anyways, like I said, I never played this game, but as the years went on, I grew to love the 3D Sonic games, starting with Colors for the Nintendo Wii. It's a wonder I haven't checked out this and its sequel, the seemingly two most beloved 3D Sonic games ever by fans, until now. But Sonic Adventure 2 Battle will have to step aside for now. We are focusing squarely on the first game. So, what do I think? Well, I honestly believe that in this case, Sega really did something that Nintendo couldn't do, and that is successfully translate their 2D mascot into 3D. Wait, hang on, calmly put down your pitchforks and hear me out. I don't think it's a bad game, but I also don't think it deserved all the praise it got when it came out. Let's go over this from the beginning. You start the game, go through the logos, and are then greeted by an FMV. To me, this intro cinematic is what Sonic is all about. Fast-paced, high-speed action with a slight edginess to it. It starts off kinda slow, but as the drums kick in, it speeds up, then halts a bit with the reveal of the big water monster, and then gets right back on track and ups the previous sequence by cutting to different scenes even faster than before. It then kicks into high gear with the introduction of vocals and a guitar, transitioning from the forest into a city, where the sense of speed multiplies with the help of many unique lights and buildings zooming by. While the footage isn't as erratic after this, the energy certainly persists. Wouldn't you agree that this FMV makes you hype as fuck to play some high-speed Sonic games? I sure am. Which makes it kinda disappointing that the first thing you do in the game is fight a nearly motionless boss. We're introduced to Sonic while he's running around the city looking all cool and shit, when he suddenly catches a glimpse of some drunk policemen speeding through the city in their cars in what seems to be quite the emergency. Naturally, he decides to follow them, because if he didn't, there wouldn't really be a game here, now would it? Anyway, Sonic catches up to the cops just as they're done firing their stealth guns at some kind of blob of water.
Oh no! Our weapons are useless!
Yeah, this could be fun. There's a semblance of a boss battle here, but only if you give him the time to actually attack you. If you just mash the jump button, this fight is over in less than 30 seconds. But hey, I get it. This is the first meeting your players will have with the game. We wouldn't want to outright destroy them during the first minute of gameplay. I mean, it's not Dark Souls after all, so I'll give this one a free pass. We then see Dr. Robotnik on a rooftop and hard cut to Sonic on a deck chair by the pool, where we witness Tails crash his plane on the beach, and thus we enter our first stage, Emerald Coast. But not until we drown in the kiddie pool while talking to some lady. This is a big and open, wild, fairly linear beach level with wide passageways for you to freely explore how Sonic moves in any given scenario. With a lot of boosters and few obstacles, this is the perfect first level to demonstrate the speed of a Sonic game translated into 3D. I really like this part right here at the start, where you bounce off some rubber bands when you hit the sides of a platform. It helps newcomers not to run straight into a wall and halt all their momentum in a good way, even guiding them towards where they're supposed to go. The controls are, for the most part, okay. I'd compare Sonic to a car. At slow speeds, if you turn the wheel 25 degrees to the side, you'll notice a slight change in trajectory. However, if you're speeding along the highway and do the same, you'll end up in the ditch in a matter of seconds. It's the same here. At 30% max speed, Sonic feels great to move around. But when you're getting up in the high 70s and beyond, even a minuscule nudge of the control stick will send you flying back and forth. I mean, it's realistic, I'll give them that, but when you're running along a narrow passageway and the collision detection isn't all that good, you're bound to encounter some problems. Like here, where I got stuck in an invisible wall at the end of a loop. All in all, I'd say it's a good level. My favorite part has to be at the midway point, where you're thrust into a long path, and if you have enough speed, you can run on the walls. I always wanted to do that. At the end of the level, after a close call with an orca, we meet up with Tails, who can tell us that he's found a new power supply for his plane in the form of a Chaos Emerald. For the, two of you that don't know, the Chaos Emeralds were previously only considered a kind of bonus item not integral to the plot of 2D Sonic games, and were hidden throughout the levels, commonly used to unlock a final stage when you found all of them. Starting with Sonic Adventure though, these things became central to the plot in a lot of the mainline games, and in some of the spin-offs. In this game, after meeting up with Tails in the Mystic Ruins to check out his new Chaos-powered plane, it is revealed that Dr. Robotnik, or Eggman, plans to let Chaos absorb the emeralds to elevate him to his perfect form, and subsequently use him to destroy Station Square and build his own little utopia in its place. Seems like a bit of a less than ideal use for an ancient beast. I'd at least try to take over a continent, but whatever. Just like Eggman's plan, the boss fight preceding this is also not anything to write home about. The Egg Hornet is a boss, and that's pretty much the only thing it is. You run around and dodge some missiles while you wait for him to try to crush you with the weight of his ship, and then you hit Eggman on the head with a homing attack. Rinse and repeat 2 times, and the aircraft smolders into little pieces around him, leaving him defenseless. You know, I'm almost tempted to call this a good boss fight, for the simple reason that you're rewarded with this gem of a cutscene after defeating it.
Well, that wasn't so hard.
Aha!
Oh no!
Just great. What's even more great is that at a lot of points in this game, after you finish an objective, there's nothing pointing you towards the next one. Like, when you beat the Egg Hornet, you just plop back into this open field.
Without more emeralds, the monster can't transform, so it's up to us to get the emeralds before Eggman does, huh?
Of course, you could go find that floating hint orb that's back by the station, and in this case it points you back towards Tails' workshop, where you can find a small green keystone used to unlock the next stage. What's weird about this is that later in the game a similar keystone is needed, but this time it actually shows you where it appears in the form of a 3-second in-game cutscene. Why couldn't they just do the same thing here? But whatever, on to the next stage, Windy Valley. Another very good looking stage like the Emerald Coast. It still feels like the game is going easy on you though. There are a few places where you can fall to your death along the main path, and there are also a minimal amount of enemies present. A lot of the pitfalls have strong currents of wind rising from them, so it's actually impossible to fall in. As you may have already guessed, the gimmick in this level is wind, which they utilize perfectly. There's a lot of cool set pieces here, including running on wind currents and escaping from the eye of a giant tornado that you're sucked into. I'd say that Windy Valley is the first level where you actually get to experience the real speed of Sonic, but it's hampered a bit by the janky controls and bad collision detection as described above. This is especially jarring for first-time players, since they're probably not used to the hyper-responsive controls yet. Getting snagged in the sides of these paths really deducts from the overall experience, which is a shame because this is a damn good level otherwise. So we get to the end of the level, find ourselves a Chaos Emerald,
Yeah, not bad.
and head back to the city. Again, there's nothing that tells you need to do this. At this point, when we step back out of the train, you'll notice that the sky has gone a little darker. Yep, it is now in the evening, and if you spend some time exploring and talking to people, you will probably notice the terminal in the lobby telling you that from now on, the casino is only open at night. Which is a weird sentence. By the way, did you notice the NPCs? Yeah, it's not that they're all human and Sonic and friends are the only anthropomorphic animals. If you're able to suspend your disbelief to the point where you can imagine a blue hedgehog running at the speed of sound, there being humans here isn't too much of a step beyond that. No, I'm talking about the fact that they move. Not just walk around, they seemingly live their own lives. After every major waypoint, like finishing a stage or finding a new piece of required equipment, NPCs move around a bit and have different dialogue. Most tell a story, like the guy that envies this other dude for going on so many dates, eventually contemplating whether or not to tell the girls he's seeing multiple people at once. We don't know if it tells them or not, but either way they find out and can be found in the pool area later on having an argument with the guy they were dating. But that's not the only stuff you can get out of them. Others give you hints of where to go too. If you head straight to the casino, you'll find that the doors are closed, and that there's a switch on the ground which summons a row of rings leading up to the casino sign, which you can't do anything with yet. If you talk to a specific NPC, however, he'll mention that he saw some sweet looking shoes down in the sewer. Oh yes, the sewer, where I go to buy all my clothing and accessories. Anyways, if you explore the city a bit, you'll eventually find an uncovered manhole where if you jump down, you'll find the Lightspeed shoes, which lets you perform the Lightspeed Dash, a charged up spin dash that lets you travel along trails of rings. This is nothing more than a required move to get to the next stage. The idea is good, but the execution is terrible. It takes ages to charge, and is only really required to use in one actual action stage. This is probably because even with the crystal ring that's hidden on the second floor of the hotel lobby, which is supposed to speed the charge up, you'll still have to stand still charging for like 3 seconds. Next up, the casino. If you were expecting a normal action stage like the previous two, well, this is not it. In Casinopolis, rings are the name of the game. With no entry fee, play until you have enough extra lives to last you through the rest of the game and save 400 rings in the bank for a special prize. No, but for real, this stage consists of 2 pinball games. Both are pretty much the same, except for a few gimmicks and callbacks to other Sega games. The bank, which initiates an hilarious scripted event, and another sewer, in case you didn't get enough of that previously. To get into the sewer, you need to lose in one of the pinball games with less than 100 rings. They even warn you of that. What kind of establishment is this? There's a bunch of enemies and death traps down here too, so be careful. Going down into the sewer isn't required by any means, but I just kind of want to point out that when you exit the sewer, you end up in the washing room, which I found kind of funny. Gotta wash off all that blood from those death traps, you know? So we pay up for the emerald and get the heck out of there. Who else is there to meet us but Eggman? I swear to God, Sonic is so slow in these cutscenes, both mentally and physically. After a brief altercation, Eggman sprays sleeping gas in the faces of our two heroes and steals the emerald we just got. Why it doesn't just end Sonic and Tails right there, we'll never know. Plot, I guess. Well, where do we go next, you ask? Actually, the game is really good at telling you this time. First, it shows you the ice key being dropped in an alley. When you pick it up, you're told to go to the Mystic Ruins, and when you arrive, a giant piece of the mountain explodes outwards, showing you the correct path. So, why couldn't they do it like this earlier? Anyways, you place down the key, go through the path previously closed off by the door, and up a ladder. Welcome to Ice Cap, my least favorite level by far. It's not just at the moment you enter the level, you're greeted with an ear-wrenching sound made by an enemy that you will encounter multiple times, but also the fact that the first part of this level is so slow. Of course, you can help speed it up by actually reaching the first jump platform, but that only lets you skip one short area. The main reason that it's so slow is that it focuses a lot on vertical movement. Not like in the middle of the tornado from stage 2, but almost. There's this cave you have to go through, and in it you cling to and jump from icicles. Turning is slow and the game isn't always sure which angle you jump from, which causes you to fall all the way back down if you're unlucky. Thankfully, if you time all your jumps well, you'll be out of there in about 2 minutes, and the area preceding it is kinda cool. You run along the hallway and break this wood fence thing, causing an avalanche to form. Thankfully, there's a conveniently placed snow bar on the ground right in front of you. The physics on this thing can be kinda janky, but the music here is so good. At the end of the slope you get another Chaos Emerald, and here we go. When you get out of the level, you find Knuckles. After you run around for about 5 minutes. And he wants the emeralds. This is the first time you fight another character, and it is absolutely garbage. 3 hits, and he's down. You can literally just stand still and mash the jump button, and you've won.
Oh no!
You may also have noticed by now that the cutscenes and the voiceovers aren't very good either. It sounds like the voice actors don't have anyone directing them, and that they used their first attempts. Combining the weird pacing and uncanny movement makes the in-game cutscenes hilariously bad. So much so, in fact, that it kinda contributes to the charm of the game. I don't know, I actually like them. It feels like I'm watching a bad B-film. In the end, Eggman gets his hands on the emerald and feeds him to Chaos. Which means, you guessed it, another bad Chaos fight. There isn't much to talk about here, you jump around while avoiding his attacks and then hit him when he surfaces. At this point, Eggman is done playing games. Jeez, what took you so long? And brings forth the egg carrier. You have to wonder why he needs Chaos when he has a giant flying battleship 1/3 of the size of the city he's trying to destroy. So naturally, Sonic and Tails rush after him using Tails' new plane. It's kind of amazing how a seemingly 8-year-old is capable enough to build a giant hidden runway, but also can't fathom why you shouldn't carry around your valuables in plain sight. In our pursuit of the egg carrier, we get to play the worst minigame ever, Sky Chase. The plane has absolutely no weight to it, zipping back and forth like Sonic would do when at top speed. You have to continuously press the button to shoot, and the reticle here is something seemingly just for show, because, well, it's useless.
We did it!
Way to go, Tails!
I'm not exactly sure what they're celebrating, all we did was fly around the ship and shoot some stuff, but nevertheless, the plane gets shot down by a laser blast and we land headfirst into the beach. Of course, we immediately go around and look for Tails, who is nowhere to be found after the crash, but instead of finding a fox with 2 tails, we find Amy. And she demands that we be a bodyguard to this random bird she found. Ew, drop that, it's full of diseases! Nevertheless, we're stuck with her for now, so let's just make the best out of it. Alright, I almost forgot to mention, you can actually play as multiple different characters in this game. Including our main protagonist, we have 6 different characters to choose from. Sonic, Tails,
Oh no!
the one with the worst theme song, Why Oh Why, Where You Included, and Shadow the Hedgehog for the Nintendo GameCube. Every one of these characters has unique characteristics. Of course, all of them gets access to power-ups, such as the shields, invincibility, and the power sneakers that increase your acceleration and loser rings when they're hit, but gameplay is slightly different amongst them. Sonic, of course, has his homing attack, which is new to this use, designed as a means to more easily attack enemies on a 3D plane, the spin dash, and his speed. Tails can use his twin tails to fly for a very short time, and is in general a pretty speedy character. Knuckles can punch, glide through the air, and climb up walls. He's somewhat slower than Tails though. Amy is the second slowest character, but has a hammer she can use to attack with, so she's not completely useless. Big the Cat, however, is completely useless. He has a fishing pole, and he's the slowest of the bunch. Gamma is the most interesting of the other characters. He has a homing missile attack, and when he runs for long enough, he goes into an all-terrain mode that you have to jump to get out of. While most characters' goal in any given stage is simply to get to the end as fast as possible, they all have certain gimmicks integrated into them to make them feel different from Sonic's stages. We'll go over that as we cover their stories, so for now, let's get back to Sonic. With Amy in tow, we can finally enter that amusement park that lets cute couples get in for free. Because who the hell pays for things anymore? I much prefer to either steal them or find them in the sewer. This is stage 5, Twinkle Park, and this time we're not here for no Chaos Emerald, no sir. This time we're here to rescue some animals. The only thing that sticks out in my mind about this level is the bumper cars. They are the first thing you're met with and you need to get into one to proceed. These cars control weird. You have to let go of the acceleration button to turn. If you don't, it'll feel like you're stuck in syrup. There's also a ring counter on the back. I'm unsure if this decides your max speed or your acceleration, but either way I couldn't notice any difference before that part of the level was done. Next, you're dropped straight into the seat of a badass roller coaster, taking you on a sightseeing trip around the part of the level you're about to traverse. Kinda cool. This level is themed around an amusement park, so in the second part you have these bowling alleys and even a merry-go-round. What gets me every single time though are these barrels placed around the stage. Their fuses light when you touch them for the first time, and then after a while they explode. It's just that the particles from the fuse is downright impossible to see unless you come to a complete standstill and search for them. This might be a resolution error on my part, but it's annoying nonetheless. After you free the animals, you find that Amy is nowhere to be found. Ugh, I have to go and look for her, don't I? Fine! It's worth noting that in the lobby of Twinkle Park you can access a minigame called Twinkle Circuit, which is basically just a radio car segment but with laps. When you get out you see that God knows who dropped an ID card, which gives you access to the next level, Speed Highway. I feel like this is the perfect time to talk about the music because it makes the game. The track here in Speed Highway is certainly among the best, but there's no truly bad piece of music in this game, except for maybe Amy's theme. Of course, I've already gushed about how much I love the song in the intro, and just like that one, the tracks in the stages help bring the atmosphere to life. Funny thing is, no matter how bad a 3D Sonic game is, the soundtrack is almost always on point. For this game though, if I had to pick my top 5 songs, excluding the main theme, it would go something like this. The theme of Gamma is a pretty good one, and it's maybe the best out of all the character themes. It's got a kind of somber feel to it, and I think that it fits the character of Gamma pretty well. I chose Fakery Way purely because of the eeriness of the track. There's not a lot of music like this in the game, but this one track really nails the atmosphere the game is trying to create in this part of Twinkle Park that is actually exclusive to Amy. Ah yeah, this one starts off with a bang. Bad Taste Aquarium is a track that very well represents the rest of the OST, with its heavy focus on rock with some synth sprinkled in. It's just all around a pretty badass track. While Lost World isn't exactly the best stage in the game, rather it's one of the worst, it's still filled to the brim with atmosphere, which it has, for the most part, this song to thank for. Without this song and the feeling it brings with it, Lost World would probably be the worst of the worst. There's just something about the energy in this one that grabs you the second it gets going, and it never loosens its grip until you stop running. But you won't want to. Speaking of Speed Highway though, let's get back to where we left off. This stage is great. You just never want to stop running once you get going in this level. This is partly thanks to the background music, like I said previously. You literally run on a highway here, a place most commonly reserved for motorized vehicles, and it feels great. There are boosters everywhere, and you literally run on the sides of skyscrapers. With diverging paths, which you have to be lightning quick to jump between, and physics that goes all over the place, but you know, in a good way. The way that if you do fall down, you actually get to keep going because there's another path there. It's just a shame that the shoddy collision detection can easily ruin some of it. The highlight of the stage has to be when you run straight down a ginormous building all the way to the ground level. When you first start the stage, all you see below you is a black abyss, but now you're actually running towards it, crashing through glass panels along the way. In my opinion, this is the coolest thing you do in the game. Even the ground level focuses a lot on speed, though it's a bit trickier here since the level isn't as open anymore and has way more obstacles to avoid. You can still go really fast though. As of yet, there has been no sign of Amy, but that changes once you get back to the city and see her being carried off by that green robot towards the Mystic Ruins. Good thing the train workers are on strike, or else they'd be squished. Wait, Sonic, you're not thinking of... Oh god! But turns out the robot is faster than it looks, and Sonic just about manages to catch up with him before the egg carrier shows up and beams him and Amy off. We can now access another part of the Mystic Ruins. This is where Angel Island crashed into the sea, and next to the bridge that the world's fastest bridge worker Mr. created, we find a new upgrade, the Lightspeed attack. This is literally used only once on the monkey in the cage right next to where you get the upgrade, and you won't ever have to use it again. But Annie, I hear you scream. Wasn't there a monkey in a cage somewhere else too? Yeah, there is, but that's for something completely different. Trust me. Destroying the first monkey opens the gate to stage 7, Red Mountain, where we see the egg carrier scoot off, and we, of course, have to chase after it. The first part of this level employs a lot of rockets for vertical movement, and ziplines that go blindingly fast for horizontal movement. This stage is also the first to use these really annoying fire enemies. They seem to always be in the way for some reason. The second part is more speed focused again. You get to run fast a lot here, and you start to see patterns where you have to use enemies as jumping blocks to get safely between platforms. You arrive at the end of the level just in time to see the egg carrier float away. Why Sonic thought chasing this thing on foot was a good idea, I'll never know. But thankfully, Tails and his new plane is here to save the day.
Hey, Sonic!
How is your sex life?
And we get another sky chase stage. Woohoo! Like, man, these things are so boring. When you look at these clips, I want you to keep in mind that this erratic movement is me doing my darnest to barely nudge the control stick. The end of this stage is the worst boss fight ever. This time, you actually fight the laser cannon, but if you just shoot straight at it, you'll automatically win.
Alrighty, we're in!
We gotta land on the egg carrier.
Whoops. I forgot something.
What's that?
There's no landing gear in this mode.
What?
Guys, please don't try to sound so distressed. I'm pretty sure this is the worst cutscene in the game.
Don't get too many ideas, you fools! You haven't seen the power this vessel really has! Get a load of this!
Oh, wow! It's changed shape! Did you see that?
Sonic's facial expression here perfectly symbolizes what I feel about that transformation. It just transformed into what it should have looked like to begin with. Lame. Eggman also makes it sound like it's gonna be a huge challenge to get to the sky deck. All you really have to do is walk up there. There's this small cutscene and an info bot next to the stairs, implying you have to unlock the door somehow, but I can't find anything that says exactly how you would do that. Anyways, for me the door is always open, and when you go inside, you end up being shot out of a cannon. Welcome to Stage 8, Sky Deck. I think this is next in line to contend in the worst stage category, because it's not really that great. There's a lot of camera issues here, and a ton of slow climbing, up both ladders and these weird cylinders. Like, the climbing wouldn't be so bad, if only it weren't so slow and hard to get off the ladders when you're at the top. Right here, I jumped off to get onto the platform, but for some reason, Sonic wouldn't go forward, so I ended up falling on the spiked ball and down into the abyss. Near the end of the first part of the level, there's this big cannon that shoots away the path you're running on. While it's a cool set piece, it isn't really that much of a danger. After you rocket your way through the cannon, you end up in the second part of the stage, which is at the top of the aircraft, I guess. The gimmick here is that you need to hold on to these cylinders when the wind is blowing, so it doesn't take you with it. I never really bothered with that though. As long as you run, you'll be okay. Then comes the worst part. After you take out a second cannon, you're plumped into the storage bay, and man oh man, the first part isn't bad. It's when you get to the point where the airship tilts, you're in for a ride. Not exactly a ride as much as a slow ascent to the top, though. Here, you need to use these monkey bars to gradually make your way to each spring to get higher up, but the camera here is dreadful, and controlling Sonic is even worse. You may be tempted to jump forwards, but don't do that. Even if you think you have your analog stick perfectly aligned with where you want to go, you're gonna end up flying far away from the wall and missing your target completely. After this though, it's finally over and we head back to the egg carrier, where we find the bridge and reset the position of the wings to what it was previously. But not before we witness Eggman take the bird from Amy and somehow pull a Chaos Emerald that is like 4/3 the bird's size out of it. We then fight Gamma and oh man. To best describe this, I'm gonna refer to my notes where I simply wrote Gamma. Are you serious? Yeah, this fight is a joke.
Resistance is futile.
Just as Sonic is about to deal the finishing blow, Amy steps in and saves Gamma, saying he's her friend and that he helped her.
Okay.
You can now play as Gamma. We finally continue our pursuit of Eggman, and who do we find with him but Chaos? But also Big the Cat for some reason. Chaos has just been fed his 6th emerald and a frog, so hopefully this time he'll be somewhat of a challenge. And actually, he can be. This is one of the better Chaos fights. You have to freeze him by using a homing attack on the drones Eggman's dropping when he's circling around the battlefield. You can either wait until he's close enough for the drones to hit him, or let them fall to the ground and wait for Chaos to suck them in. Either way, 4 homing attacks in his frozen state is enough to yet again send him running. This time, with a tail between his legs. And of course, Sonic is yet again way too slow to catch up to the fleeing Eggman, jumping after him and landing in a new part of the Mystic Ruins.
I hate Eggman.
We then follow a mystical light, or rather the same light we've seen at least a dozen times by now, into a newly uncovered pyramid entrance. Welcome to Sonic Lost World, I mean Stage 9. Another one high on the list of bad levels. The music here is really good though, and like I said, it really sets the atmosphere for the stage. Let's go through this one from the beginning. You start in water, which slows you down considerably. Next, you're running down inside a cylinder with pillars erupting from the ground, halting your progress. Some of them are even on fire. Then you have to go through the water temple from Ocarina of Time. While not as bad and not nearly as long, it's still annoying. You have to find 3 switches to open the door to the next part, but to do that, you have to raise the water level and navigate through it, which means, you guessed it, water physics. The big snake circling the center of the room is pretty cool, and you can actually ride on it, but the camera gets pretty weird when you're on it. Next up, we have mirrors that you need to shine light into to light up the room. And holy shit, you actually use the lightspeed dash? Then comes the worst part, walking on walls. You all know what happens when the game tries to screw with gravity and perspective by now, and it's no better here. You have to line up these wall panels by pressing a switch multiple times. Walking on these can be a nightmare. The control stick feels just slightly off, so you have to be careful not to pick up any speed at all, or else you're doomed to fall all the way down and have to do it all over again. At the end of the stage, we're guided to a mural by the shining light, where we see the monster from the intro depicted. Before we get to think twice about it though, we're sent to a burning temple with dead chows everywhere, and with a lone echidna looking upon the destruction. This is actually important to the overall story of the game, but don't expect to find out more anytime soon. When we finally snap out of that dreamlike trance, we see Eggman heading off in the distance. When we follow him, we see that he's built a giant city. Either we were gone for God knows how many years, or Eggman is really good at hiding stuff, because I'm sure I didn't see that thing there before we went into the pyramid. Of course we follow him, because Sonic only has one thing on his mind, and so we end up in Eggman's base. My god, this music is so good. If my previous list was a top 6, this would have gotten 6th place, no doubt about it. This place is really interesting too, with weird machinery and even 2 Sonic robots, one of them being Metal Sonic. Let me just remind you that Eggman expresses really bad taste at being called Eggman, so why does he go around naming all his creations Egg something? It started becoming quite a problem to the point where to enter the Chow Garden in the Egg Carrier, you have to spell Eggman as a password to open the door. We'll talk a bit more about the Chow Garden later, but for now, let's solve this puzzle and get an entrance to the last stage, Final Egg. The music here is the same as in the base, so that's a good start. This is a pretty normal level actually, but a few things stand out. Like the giant revolving drums that has you running on the ceiling, and the platforming segment where you have to make your way to the bottom by running through a series of pipes. At one point, you get through pitfalls by floating on air currents made from small fans. Also, I really like the environments here. They feel very mechanical in contrast to the earlier nature stages and kinda last level-ish, if you know what I mean. We finally get to the end, and what awaits us is the Egg Viper, a giant mechanical monstrosity modeled after a snake. This is probably the hardest boss fight in the game. The first phase has him coming up and down while shooting you some lasers. All the phases start with his attack. As long as you keep moving though, these are easy enough to avoid. He then exposes his weak point and starts to charge up an attack. This is your chance to strike, so use a homing attack and 1/6 of his health bar is gone. Second phase is basically the same as the first, but this time it shoots a big exploding blast at you before retreating backwards to charge his attack. Here you need to use a homing attack on the green buttons on his tail, and then on Eggman himself. After this hit, you're flung over to the opposite platform, which has even more rings to collect, should you need it. Next phase, after the exploding blast, he flies to one end of the stage and rushes you while shooting. I don't think I ever got hit by this attack, so it must be pretty easy to dodge. Fourth phase. This time, instead of shooting the explosive blast and trying to run you over, he'll throw a spinning spiked platform at you, which you need to jump on and ride back to him for your homing attack to reach. This can be really annoying, especially if you don't realize that the platform stops right beneath you every time. So just stand still and time or jump well and you'll be fine. This is probably what killed me the most times before I got it. At first I tried to jump on it while it was in front of me, but the spin on the platform and Sonic's momentum didn't exactly go hand in hand, so I just ended up flying right off the stage.
All systems, full power!
Starting with the fifth phase, he'll try to destroy the platform you're standing on, and then start destroying chunks of the other one. He's getting serious now. For the last 2 hits, he'll just use the spiked spinners, so the strategy here is simple. You hit him the last time and he tries to make one last ditch effort. I hate it when bosses do this. Like, they play with your expectations to make you lower your guard, and oops, would you look at that, you're dead and have to do the entire fight over again, even though the health bar was gone. Luckily, this last attack is a joke, and he only ends up destroying one single platform. And, well, that's the end of Sonic's story. We end up with him, again, standing around watching as Eggman escapes, and Tails coming flying in for some reason, and then they run off in the opposite direction of the bad guy. And just before the credits roll, we end with this shot. Like, Is it supposed to be Sonic singing here? His mouth moves, kinda in conjunction with the lyrics, but then he stops and just jumps off this cliff to his death. All the other characters do this too in their ending cinematics, so it's not just something that's unique to Sonic or whatever. It all just comes off as really weird and cringy. Hey there! So, to actually get this out in a timely manner, I had to split the episode in 2 parts. I hope you understand. This one turned out to be pretty long. So, anyways, as soon as part 2 is up, I'm gonna link to it from here, of course. And yeah, see you then.